Que pasa, mi gente? Cali X Boxing. Hit the like, hit the sub, hit those alert buttons. If you're watching this in the archive, make sure you are leaving your comments below. I get to all of them. Ask Lil Penny. I get to all of them. Lil Penny drops all the comments. I get back to all of them. That's what we do over here. Most of you will be watching in the archive. So make sure you are leaving those comments. And we're on the eve of March Madness. So I got my basketball, the round ball with me here as well. But we'll be talking boxing, as always. And we'll be speaking Canelo. And anytime we speak Canelo, we know it's going to be hot and cold. It's never in the middle. It's never in the middle. And it's that way with superstars, right? It's always that way with superstars. You never have like a comment down the middle when it comes to a Tom Brady, to a Peyton Manning, to a Michael Jordan, to a Tiger Woods. It's always here or there. It's always hot or cold. It's never in the middle. And we try here. We try. But we're going to be pulled in both directions while talking about Canelo. It's going to be one of those shows. And it's a difficult show. These are the difficult shows to navigate because as you are a boxing apologist, sometimes you come off as apologists for certain fighters who are behaving the way you want to see them behave as a boxing fan. And when you're a boxing fan above all, you speak up for the fighters who are behaving the way you want to see fighters behave as a boxing fan. Because like I said, I'm a boxing fan speaking to other boxing fans about how we can further our agenda as boxing fans. And how can we further our agenda is we big up, give props to fighters behaving a certain way, and then fighters behaving the way we don't want to see, we detract those fighters. And in that way, it gets us closer to seeing the fights we want to see on our TV screen on Friday night, Saturday night, which is the end game here. That's the goal. There is no other agenda. There is no other agenda other than that. And they can levy any kind of claims they want, but there is no other agenda except seeing the fights we want to see on our TV screen on Friday and Saturday night. Seeing the fights. Those fights, you know the fights I'm talking about. The Cotto Margaritos, the Tito's versus Oscars, those fights that give you that feeling in your gut as they're doing ring entrances. Like, that's my favorite fighter. That became my favorite fighter for a certain reason. And I don't know if he's going to win this fight. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to win this fight. That's what boxing is about, right? It's why we speak highly of an NOA versus Fulton, right? It's why we speak highly of those things. It's why we finally are applauding that Tank and Ryan are taking a tough fight. It's why we are. We want to see more fights like that, right? And I'm going to get into Canelo versus Ryder, what it is, what it isn't. Expectations. We're going to speak a lot about expectations today. First, let me get into some comments. Team Batman Boxing. I always appreciate you coming through. Chauncey Pearls as well. Why do I think Ryder is going to give Canelo a tough fight? I have a theory on why you may think that, because there's part of me that thinks that as well. Although Canelo's a 12-1, 13-1 opening odds favorite. And it's like that because Canelo is Canelo. Remember, he was a 5.5-1 opening favorite against Bivol. And that ended up being way off. Way off. And he may, at 12-13-1 favorite, he may be a little overvalued here coming in. But we'll see. Jab that like as y'all come in. Please jab that like as y'all come in the building. I might go to the fight. I've never been to Mexico and been to a few Canelo fights. If it wasn't for that travel ban, would have been 2 more. And I've been to several Canelo fights. And this fight, due to scheduling conflicts for me in May, May's a busy month. I'm not going to be able to make that track. But I would love to. That's a fight I would love to see. Love to attend. I expect Canelo to style on Ryder, and he should put Ryder is better than most believe. But I think Canelo will be extra motivated to put on display in Mexico. I'm expecting Canelo to look superb. And once again, I'm gonna get back to my theory. I'm gonna circle right back to that. Salute to my guy Bruce, Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and more. Appreciate you swinging through always. OJ22, I always appreciate you as well. Salute Alex Canelo taking on a top 10 super middleweight coming off hand surgery. I can't complain. Ryder would be Andre best win, Charlo's best win, Benavidez best win, etc. Expectations, right? Expectations. We're going to talk about Zurdo fighting Gabe. The expectations, right? The expectations of a Zurdo Ramirez much different than the expectations of a Canelo Alvarez. For Zurdo, like Zurdo's coming off of a loss to Bivol, right? So the expectations are he can fight a Gabe Rosado, right? Was Canelo afforded that? And there's a reason for that. Canelo loses to Bivol. 17 days later, he announces he's about to fight Gennady Golovkin on pay-per-view. There's a reason the expectations are different. We'll get to all this. Coming off the injury surgery, the ring miles Canelo has, looks like he's enjoying the fruits of the labor outside the ring. He will likely win, but we might start seeing the Canelo decline. Yeah. And this is what we talked about at the Golovkin fight, right? To me, the story with Canelo versus Golovkin was age. Age. I spoke with Steve Kim about this right after the fight at the lobby bar. We both, like he said it. I was like, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Age. Age after that fight. It was age. Canelo late stoppage. Zurdo fighting Rosado is terrible. It's terrible. Mr. T in the building. It is. It's terrible. Awful. Awful. How many shots is Gabe Rosado going to get? And I appreciate Gabe Rosado being a fighter. I appreciate him taking on tough challenges. But this recycling of Gabe Rosado, there are other Gabe Rosados out there. We need to produce other Gabe Rosados. We need guys to be gatekeepers. We need guys to be measuring sticks. And there are other younger Gabe Rosados out there who aren't getting the opportunity because we keep recycling Gabe Rosado. He's had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after, and he's failed except for the Beck the Bully fight. And it's a great, that's a great win. It's a great knockout. But how many more does that get you? We're tired of seeing Gabe Rosado, and Zurdo should be past a Gabe Rosado right now. He should be past it. There are other fighters we want to see in the division see Zurdo fight. And even as a comeback fight, there are fighters ahead of Gabe Rosado who should have gotten that shot, and we would have rather see Zurdo fight. So Zurdo versus Gabe Rosado, other than betting odds, I have no interest in this fight, and I have no interest in talking about that fight. Why is he fighting Gabe Rosado? Why is the zone greenlighting that fight? Why? For Zurdo, for Golden Boy to even bring up Gabe Rosado, and then for the zone to check that and say, yeah, we're going to put that on our network. Why? Why are we seeing that? It's fighters that are maneuvering around certain situations. We see it with Josh Buatsi today. Josh Buatsi's out there saying, I don't want to fight on an app. I want to fight on a real network. What I hear, the translation for that to me is, I don't want to fight Dimitri Bivol. I'd rather go in a different direction and get my bag in an easier way. That's what I hear. Gabe Rosado equals Josecito Lopez. Yeah. Fury versus Usyk. You know, before I get to Canelo, before I circle back to this, like, how many times do we need to hear Fury? Just do the fight. Just do the fight. As a boxing fan, I can't reward this type of behavior and find it humorous and think it's just fight the fight. For the love of God, how long have we been talking about this? How many opportunities has Fury been so close to undisputed? And it feels like he just dangles that carrot, and takes it away. We shouldn't be talking about this right now. We shouldn't be talking a rematch clause that he brought up. We shouldn't be talking about 70-30, 60-40, 50-50. I don't even want to hear anything about splits. I don't want to see fighters negotiate over social media apps. Don't want to see it. Don't want to hear it. Just make the fight. Just wake me up when you announce the fight. But this should be happening April 29th. We're sitting here March 15th, and we still don't have an official announcement for Fury versus Usyk, and why? And these things are so easy to sniff out. These are litmus tests that people are out there failing. Boxing fans are out there failing litmus test after litmus test. It's so easy. Behind this door, I have my 2.5-year-old dog, and he's out in the open. He's doing whatever he wants. Why? Because I trust him. It took me a half a day to house train this dog. I got my puppy, 3-month-old puppy, and he's sitting in a crate in the bedroom. Why? Because I don't trust him to roam free. If there is poop on the rug, if I leave them both open and there's poop on the rug, I don't even have to see the poop hit the rug to know whose fault it was. It's the puppy's fault. Why do I know that? Because of track record. The track record tells me that Tyson Fury, you have to drag him to make the fights that we want. Eventually, he gets to him, right? But he should have gotten some more by now. And you have to drag him to get to the meaningful fights. You have to drag him, kicking and screaming. Usyk's out there wheeling and dealing. Usyk, in under 20 fights or 20 fights, this dude has consolidated 9 of the 10 major belts in the 2 weight classes he's competed again in. 9 out of the 10 major belts, if we're counting the Ring Magazine belt. He's done that in 20 fights, 19 fights, whatever it is right now. He makes the fights happen. And there's no drama. With Tyson Fury, it's constant drama. Constant drama. And we talked about this with Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, they're a net positive to the sport. They're a net positive to the heavyweight division. They are. They've added excitement to the division. And that trilogy ended up being a great, fun trilogy. But the other stuff that comes along with those 2 fighters, you just ask yourself, why? Why do you have to do that? Why the constant heel turns? Why? Why can't you just come without the added drama? Why can't you just make the undisputed fight? Why do we need to hear 50-50, 60-40, 70-30? Why do we need to hear rematch clause, no rematch clause? Just make the fight. This fight should be announced already. Zerto is back in bubble wrap. That's what it seems like. He's back in bubble wrap. I finally agree. I definitely feel like he avoided Bivol. Buatsi was the form from the 2016 Olympic class, almost a decade in, still no real fights. Shame. He's one of those fighters. He's one of those fighters that doesn't give us what we want. I just want Fury Usyk to happen, as do I. If it happens, I've said it, I think Fury stinks out that fight and wins it. He turns into Vladimir Klitschko in that fight. 1 to 2 punches, hug. 1 to 2 punches, hug. He doesn't throw over 2 punches. He's fully capable of it, as Vlad Klitschko is fully capable of it. But they realize that I can yuck this thing up and win this fight. I'm not throwing over 2-punch combination. I'm not doing it. Usyk is a rhythm fighter. He's a rhythm fighter. So I'm going to continue to break the action. I'm not going to let this guy get in a rhythm like Anthony Joshua did. I'm not going to fight this guy hands-free. I'm not. I'm going to use my size. I'm going to lean on him, lean on him, lean on him. If he gets on the inside, I'm going to lean on him more. I'll throw 1 or 2 punches, try to score my points, and I'm out. So I actually don't think this is going to be an entertaining fight, and I actually think that Tyson Fury likely wins it based off of the style. But you got to make the fight. You got to make the fight. Golden doodle, sheep a doodle. That's what I'm rolling with. Usyk is like I've never seen anything like this. He's just rolling through. As far as compared to past champs, Fury is overrated as well as opponents were. And I've talked about this. I've had people, shout out my guy Beeb, Joe Habib, who say Fury beats any heavyweight ever due to size and due to his dexterity with his size, his athleticism. And if you want to say that head-to-head, fair enough. I disagree. And I think that Usyk moving into the division as a natural cruiserweight and having success and already consolidating 4 of the 5 major belts shows us that this argument that just because heavyweights are bigger today, just because of the size, that heavyweights of the past who were naturally smaller can't compete with these guys, with the new heavyweight. They can't compete with the Tyson Furies, the Deontay Wilders, the Joe Joyces, the Anthony Joshua, because these guys are much naturally bigger. And they would be able to impose these much smaller heavyweights who are between 200 and 215, or maybe even 190 back in the day. They would be able to impose their size on these fighters. It's just not a fair game. And I disagree. You see a guy like Usyk moving into division and have immediate success. And you even see it looks at times that Fury is hesitant to fight him. Just saying. So you see this stuff and it throws water on that narrative. I don't agree with it. I never did. I never did. I don't think a Fury walks through a Muhammad Ali, a George Foreman, a Joe Frazier, a Joe Louis, Marciano. I don't think they just walk through these guys. I don't. A Mike Tyson, any of the heavyweights of the 90s. I don't think these guys are just walking through those guys just because they're bigger. And if you look at the resume, to your point, these are thin resumes that we're talking about, especially when compared to heavyweights of the past. Great heavyweights of the past. Like Ali's resume, it's just uncompared. This dude fought Ken Norton 3 times, and he fought freaking Joe Frazier 3 times. Who the hell does that? He's past his prime, and he fights George Foreman, the baddest man roaming the planet. He fights him and stays on the ropes for 8 to 9 rounds, getting beat purposely. So he can come back and knock him out as he wears out. These are the type of dudes we're talking about. And to say guys with thin resumes like Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder could just run through these guys is disrespectful to heavyweights of the past. But these resumes are so thin. He beats Vladimir Klitschko. What happens after that? And I thought that was a brilliant performance. He out-Klitschko's Klitschko. I thought he won 10 rounds. And I was looking forward to him to take the ball and run with it. And instead, we got what we got. The Wilder wins. I love that stuff. But what else do we have? We're talking about Deontay Wilder possibly being a first ballot Hall of Famer. When you look at his resume, his biggest wins are an older Luis Ortiz and a Bermani Stavern. That's it. That's his resume, fellas. So how great do we know these guys are compared to heavyweights of the past who had to go through the gauntlet? Like Usyk in an undisputed fight compared to what fighters went through in the past, heavyweights of the past, it's sort of an easy run. I've got Fury beating Usyk either outside or inside. I think the jab of Fury will give Usyk fits. Perhaps. And he steps inside, will dismantle Usyk, in my opinion. I'm high on Usyk, but the size, we'll see. The zone gave Bivol a guaranteed win with Rosado, who will come forward to get his fans back. I don't know. I don't find it endearing at all. So the Zerto fans, if they see him walk through Gabe Rosado, I don't see what's endearing about that. You see a win like that, you don't think, oh, Zerto's back. To me, I see Zerto's back to his old ways. Pad the resume. Go for your big shot. You lose the big shot, and then you go back to padding your resume. I don't like it. As a fan, I don't like it. Bo beats Fury. I agree. Mercer beats Fury. The Razor beats Fury. I don't know. I don't know where those matchups go. Maybe perhaps Fury wins those fights. All I'm saying is those guys had tougher fights. They had tougher resumes. Bigger does not necessarily mean better. Nobody beats Muhammad Ali at his best. Perhaps. All I'm saying is the size argument doesn't work when you have a cruiserweight come into the division and have 4 of the 5 major belts. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Now, Canelo. Let me bring this up. Let me put this comment down. This is Ring Magazine's super middleweight rankings right here. This is it. Canelo the champion, Benavidez based off of eye test, because that's all we have to go off of with Benavidez, #1 challenger, Caleb Plant, #2 challenger. And fair enough, he took a shot with Canelo, lost the fight. But other than that, pretty thin resume with him as well. John Ryder is sitting there at the #3 challenger. David Morrell Jr., #4. Now, when you look at these rankings, what do you see? You see potential. You see the bottom half is pretty. The bottom half isn't strong. The top half, a lot of potential. A lot of potential. But in that top half, you have one guy, who has actually achieved some things as of recent. His name is John Ryder. And you can say what you want about John Ryder. There's going to be a lot of American exceptionalism here. There's going to be a lot of American elitism saying, oh, he's just John Ryder. He's just John Ryder. But he's the only super middleweight that has 2 top 10 super middleweight wins in 2022. The only one. The only one. We've been over this. He beat, who did he beat? Zach Parker. Now, neither one of these guys are in Ring Magazine's top 10 now since he beat him, but Zach Parker was there. So that's one of them. And Danny Boy was there as well. That was the other one. He's got 2 top 10 super middleweights in 2022. Danny Jacobs, Zach Parker. He kicked them both out the rankings. He fought the fights that the other guys were not fighting. What did David Benavidez do in 2022? We've been over this. What did he do? He fought David Lemieux. He fought one fight against a middleweight moving up who was 57 years old, whatever he was, well past his prime. Caleb Plant, what did he do? He had a top 10, to his credit, coming off the Canelo loss. He has a top 10 super middleweight win in Anthony Durrell, to his credit. And he took a shot with Canelo. He lost. He's trying to work his way back into another shot with Canelo. But when I see people disrespect the John Ryder fight, what do I see? I see the expectations of Canelo. And people have higher expectations of Canelo, which is how it should be. If you're the face of the sport, if you're the star, it's like I talked about with Tom Brady earlier, Michael Jordan, the expectations should be higher. And as a star, you should be able to carry those expectations. It's why when Azerto fights this week against Gabe Rosado, nobody really blinks an eye because Zerto. When a Jamal Charlo goes 635 days without fighting and nothing planned and still keeps his belt, nobody blinks an eye because Jamal is Jamal. When David Benavidez goes his whole career without a top 10 win, we don't blink an eye because Benavidez is Benavidez. When Plant takes one shot and loses to Canelo, we don't really blink an eye because Plant is Plant. Morrell Jr. What's Morrell Jr. out there doing? And nothing planned for 2023 so far. He's a prospect or whatever. He's a #4 guy with a lot of talent, but no big wins. But we don't expect a lot so far because Morrell Jr. is Morrell Jr. It's the expectations. And our expectations of Canelo are higher. If Benavidez fights John Ryder and beats him, what are we saying? He beats a top 10 guy. John Ryder is the best win on David Benavidez's record right now if that fight happened today and he beats him. Same with Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant beats John Ryder. John Ryder would be the best win on Caleb Plant's resume. Morrell Jr., same thing. Charlo moves up to 168, same thing. We're talking about a guy with multiple top 10 wins at super middleweight with some momentum going in his career. And he earned his shot. And that's the other thing. He is the mandatory. This is a mandatory fight. And sure, he could pay John Ryder some step-aside money, but a mandatory fight back in Mexico. It's his first fight in Mexico in his home country in 12 years. Once again, do you see other fighters leave their home country to fight for 12 years? Expectations. The expectations are different. John Ryder has earned this shot at the end of the day. We talk about what this fight is. It's a mandatory. It's a mandatory against the #3 contender in the weight class. A guy with momentum coming off of 2 top 10 super middleweight wins. And what is it as well? We've talked about when we talk about Canelo, as compared and contrasted to his peers, you're comparing apples to oranges. Why? Activity level is the main thing. If you don't get the fight you want for Canelo as a boxing fan in May, you're likely to get it in September. If you don't get it in September, you're likely to get it in February. If you don't get it in February, you're likely to get it in May. These other fighters, you may see them once a year, and you'll likely see him once a year against average opposition. Canelo, since December 2020, has outpaced his peers 2-1, and in many cases, 3-1. We've been over this. Top 10 pound for pound in 2022 fought a combined 14 times. Top 10 pound for pound in 2023 through 2.5 months, 0 times they fought. 0. The top 10 pound for pound, I'll repeat it, the top 10 pound for pound in boxing through 2.5 months has fought a combined 0 times. 0. And off the top of my head, Canelo and Inoue will be the first 2 pound for pound fighters to fight in 2023 in early May. So we'll go 4 months, the first 4 months of boxing, without seeing a top 10 pound for pound fighter fight. That's disgusting. But our expectations have lowered so much that's acceptable. It's acceptable to see the top 10 pound for pound fighter combined 14 times in 2022. Because, you know, he needs a step-up fight, and he needs a stay busy fight. He just came off a tough fight 11 months ago, so we need to give him something easier. And he lost, and, you know, since he lost, and then since he had a layoff, since Charlo had a 635-day layoff, you know, he's going to have ring rust, so we got to give him an easier fight. These are the expectations we have. Expectations. These are the expectations of the modern boxer. But who doesn't have the benefit of that? Which fighter? It's Canelo. Canelo goes this year. He fights John Ryder, who is a top 5 super middleweight. And then he bounces back in September and fights the number 1 light heavyweight. That's a hell of a year, right? And for any other fighter, that's a legacy year. That's the year we're pointing at. David Benavidez were to fight a top 5 super middleweight, then bounce back and fight Dimitri Bivol, the top light heavyweight, we'd be saying, oh my God, David Benavidez, we got a new sheriff in town. Canelo, it's everyday business. It's just what he does, right? And for a lot of people, they'll complain about it. The one gripe that you have, legitimate gripe that you have here, is that it's on a pay-per-view. I don't like that either. I'd rather not see Canelo versus Ryder on a pay-per-view. And we know what pay-per-view value fights are, right? Because they try to brainwash you into thinking that, oh, just because there is no pay-per-view value fights. Sometimes we just have to make the pay-per-view because of financial business. No. We know what pay-per-view level fights are, right? So the one gripe here is this should have been on regular DAZN, right? Should have been right. That's a legitimate gripe. You say that, I'm fine with it. But it's when you go further. It's when you say things like, oh, but he's not fighting Boo Boo Andre. What is Boo Boo Andre doing? What is he doing? Expectations. The expectations of Boo Boo Andre are so low that what he's doing is acceptable enough to get a Canelo shot to a lot of people. And what you're saying is you don't think much of Boo Boo Andre to have that argument. Shouldn't you have higher expectations of Boo Boo Andre to say, look, dude, you got to at least fight Zach Parker to get the fight? You've ducked Zach Parker twice in the same calendar year. You ducked Janibek twice in the same calendar year. For the love of God, I've never in my life seen a dude duck 2 fighters simultaneously twice in the same calendar year. Boo Boo Andre pulled that off. I'm almost more impressed by that than if the dude would have actually fought those 2 in 1. How do you pull that off and still have content creators come on and cap for you? How does he pull that off? But I see dudes saying, oh, but he's not fighting Andre and he's not fighting Charlo. And I'm looking and I'm like, Andre fought 0 times in 2022. And then he fought the fight that he fought in 2023, January 2023. And you think he deserves a shot? Ryder snuck in. Like, Ryder fought Zach Parker. Andre should have fought that fight. We talk about fighters who are deterred, like they do not like they don't like to assume any kind of risk. And Andre is one of those guys. Charlo is becoming one of those guys. Look at what he did. Like the Zach Parker fight, if you look at the odds, Zach Parker was a Andre was a minus 165 favorite against Zach Parker. So it was close to even odds. Close. When he saw that, and when he saw the opening odds for Janibek, I guarantee you, say, this is too much risk. It's too much risk. I'm not assuming this risk. You look at John Ryder. What did John Ryder do? John Ryder was the 2-1 underdog to Zach Parker. And he went in, he fought the fight, and he won easily. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at Janibek fight, his last fight, and I'm like, these were winnable fights for Andre. Or were they? Like, we don't know. We don't know who Andre is. We don't know how good he is because he hasn't fought anybody. But I'm looking at these guys fight. I'm looking at Zach Parker fight with an injury. I'm looking at Janibek fight, and I'm like, Andre could have fought these fights. And if he loses these fights, the guy's just not that good. But these are winnable fights. And he's not assuming any risk and just hoping that the fight falls in his lap. And as a boxing fan, there's no intrigue there. Why would I be attracted to a fighter like that? Why? Jamal Charlo hasn't fought in 635 days, and there's still dudes out there politicking for him to get a Canelo fight. Why? Why? Even if you think that those are better fights based off of the eye test for Canelo, even if you think those are more marketable fights, there's an argument there. But why would you politic for these guys? Why? What's in it for you? What's in it for you to politic for a dude who doesn't even care enough about you to sit on a belt for 635 days without fighting? What's in it for you as a boxing fan to politic for a dude like Andre, who has been throughout his whole career minus 3,000 favorite, minus 5,000 favorite, minus 10,000 favorite, minus 500 favorite, minus 8? What's in it for you? Why waste your breath? Even if the eye test tells us these are better fights, why would you politic for these dudes? And these dudes, I'm more convinced than ever they don't have real fans. They have temporary fans that are there in their corner because they're just Canelo detractors. And they're mistaking these people for actual fans. They're not actual fans. They're just using you as a prop, as a little pawn in their war against Canelo. Andre doesn't have real fans. Charlo doesn't have real fans. Benavidez outside of Phoenix, Scottsdale area doesn't have real fans. These fans have adopted them in their war against Canelo. That's what's going on. And what I'm saying as a boxing fan is, why are you going to war? Even if you don't like Canelo, why are you going to war on the side of guys who aren't fighting real fights? Benavidez, I got to give him a little credit. At least he's going to fight Caleb Plant finally. Finally. But this narrative that Canelo is ducking Benavidez when Benavidez dropped a $10 million bag on the scale. He dropped the bag on the scale. And Plant's out there telling him why you didn't get the Canelo shot and why I got it. You couldn't keep your nose clean, and you dropped the bag on the scale. You couldn't make weight. So fair enough. Work your way back up. You beat Plant. You've worked your way back up. Now I can get, if you beat Plant and you beat him good, especially as compared to Canelo, then we got ourselves a matchup now. Then we'll start saying, oh, Benavidez got the win that's been escaping him. Let's get Canelo versus Benavidez as a hell of a fight at 168 for all the marbles. But until that happens, Shout out my guy Haplo. Foreman, Lewis, Vitali, and others beat Fury. I've always been high on Vitali especially. But yeah, Lennox Lewis, Joe Louis, George Foreman, I would take all of them over the modern heavyweights. But, I get the size argument, Tyson Fury, especially because not only does he have size, he has dexterity, he's got smarts. He's shown that he can beat fighters at their own game. He beat Klitschko at his own game. He beat Wilder at his own game. I get all that. I'm high on Fury as a fighter, but you got to back it up with resume over time consistently. And you got to stop putting boxing fans through the ringer, because you got to realize when you play these games through the media to get to Usyk's head, or for positioning with negotiations, you're messing with the boxing fan. I don't want to see it. Just make the fight. Manny versus Salvador Sanchez, great fight. You got Pacquiao in that one. Has to be 126. Morales beat him there. Sanchez. All right. So we got mythical matchups going on. Doo-doo, nobody. Tell Punch always sucking doo-doo. Was arguing with Nello at post-fight conference. Get the F out of here. Nobody really fought anybody. Canelo doing all the work, period. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's going to come off. And I know it. And I don't care. It's going to come off that I'm a Canelo apologist or whatever. But what you're seeing is a boxing apologist. And by extension, it may look like I'm a Canelo apologist. But when I see a fighter going for legacy, undisputed at 168, and they'll try to demean that legacy and say it's not that good of an undisputed run, when I remember the arguments. I remember the mythical matchups when Canelo was at 160. Oh, if he goes up to 168, Canelo has always struggled with lateral movement. He's always struggled with slick fighters. So now you got a bigger slick fighter, a bigger fighter with lateral movement. And Billy Joe Saunders, he would never move up to 168 and fight that fight and win that fight. What does he do? Wins the fight, knocks him out. And then it's, Billy Joe Saunders, Billy Bum Saunders. You start to hear this stuff. Billy Ho Saunders. They'll try to knock down those achievements. They'll adopt certain fighters, and then they'll drop those fighters when they don't pull off what they want to. I've noticed this about Canelo detractors. They're constantly moving the goalposts. Notice what they do. When these guys are in the periphery, they build them up, right? When Canelo's at 160, Billy Joe Saunders is built up as this boogeyman for Canelo. Terrible style. Caleb Plant as well. Caleb Plant was white chocolate. Caleb Plant's all wrong stylistically for Canelo when Canelo's at 160. Canelo would never move up to 168 and beat these guys or fight these guys. It's not going to happen. He's going to stay at middleweight. So what does he do? He moves up and says, I want to be undisputed. I want to be undisputed within the year. He moves up, becomes undisputed at 11 months. But what happens is when he moves up to 168, and these guys who were in the periphery they were trying to make them a threat mythically, but they weren't really a threat because they were in the periphery. When Canelo moves up and signs to fight these fights, then they start to knock down Billy Joe Saunders before the fight happens, because they're moving the goalpost. They're readying it for when Canelo beats Billy Joe Saunders. It's actually not a good win. It's actually not. They did the same thing with Caleb Plant. When it looked like that fight wasn't going to be signed, Canelo just doesn't want it. He doesn't want to deal with the PBC because he doesn't want it with Caleb Plant. Then he signs the fight, and then they start to knock down Caleb Plant. One-handed fighter. Not much power, etc., etc. They're getting it ready. They're constantly using the narratives. So what happens? He beats Caleb Plant after beating Billy Joe Saunders. And now Canelo's just, he just fights white boys. He fights Euro bums. He doesn't fight slick fighters. Billy Joe Saunders was a slick fighter before. Caleb Plant was white chocolate before. He had the fade. He was at the cookout. And then he's not. Then he's not. And then what happens? I'll take it further. Caleb Plant loses the fight. He knocks out Andre Durrell. Now we got white chocolate back. And then when he signs to fight David Benavidez, when David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant was announced, oh, White Chocolate's definitely back. He's definitely back. Now we got ourselves. Before, last year was a weak division, right? Now, 168's heating up. Now 168 strong. Now look at the talent at 168. The goalposts are constantly moving. Benavidez beats Caleb Plant. It's the greatest win in the history of boxing. It's the greatest win we've seen at super middleweight ever. Did you see what he did to Darrell? He knocked him out, shoveled him. White Chocolate's back. He's actually a better fighter than before when he was fighting Canelo. David Benavidez beats Plant. It's a legacy-defining win, and it gets him in talks for pound. Canelo beats him. This is an easy run. Just an easy run. Caleb Plant was trailer park trash after he signed to fight Canelo. One-handed fighter. No lateral movement. Now we got White Chocolate back. If he beats Plant, then he could start deserving Benavidez or Plant. To me, it's 50-50. I lean Benavidez, but, man, I'll tell you what. I'll be betting Plant because as a 3-1, I think he's down to a 3-1 underdog right now. So I think Plant is undervalued as a 3-1 underdog. I'll tell you that. But I'd say it's 55-45 Benavidez. I've always liked Plant as a fighter. Did before the Canelo fight. After, I just said he needs to step up his competition. He did that with Canelo, took a shot. I thought he did well for about 5-6 rounds there. And he showed what who he is. He is a slick fighter. He does have some power. He is a one-handed fighter, but he's got power with that hand. He's got lateral movement. He's cagey. He's smart. Deceptively athletic. He's all those things. I thought that before the Canelo fight and after the Canelo fight. And we simply have not seen Benavidez in with this level of competition yet. That's the wild card here. That's the wild card. This is a huge step up for Benavidez, and it's not a step up for Plant because Plant's already been in there with Canelo. Shout out from Los Angeles. Appreciate you swinging through. Shout out Los Angeles. Good afternoon to Andre. Big up to the HCP. Appreciate you swinging through, working and listening. My guy, JC. Always keeping it 100. Try to, man. Try to. And I know it's going to be seen a certain way. These type of shows can be a little challenging because anytime you talk about the star, you're going to have strong opinions on both sides. But for me, the battle is against the Canelo detractors because I feel like there's, like I said, there are real beefs. The real beef is pay-per-view. I don't like it being on pay-per-view either. That's a fair point. And we've had fair points in the past. I didn't like the catch weights at middleweight. I didn't like the catch weight with Matthew Hatton, all that stuff. There are legitimate points, and then y'all go overboard. You go overboard. You jump the shark Fonzie style, and then you end up being a full-blown Canelo hater, and you just don't see it. I've seen it. The red flags are there. You thought he lost every close fight. You thought he lost the Trout fight. You thought he lost the Lara fight. You thought he lost all the Golovkin fights. I think Plant could beat Benavidez 200 on Plant. And that's fair. That is a good fight. And by the way, another thing with that is, although I like the fight, I don't like it on pay-per-view. And that's how far we move the goalpost again, is any good fight goes on pay-per-view now. Between two named fighters in hardcore boxing terms. Plant versus Benavidez is not going to do good pay-per-view wise. I hear the tickets aren't selling well. It's going up against March Madness as well. And the buzz is simply not there. But it's a good fight boxing terms, and it's a meaningful fight. And I think Plant can win that fight, but it's close. If Benavidez runs through Caleb Plant, then that's how you build a fight. I talked about that. One of the ways to build a fight traditionally is you have a shared opponent. We know the triangle theory does not work in boxing, but when you have a shared opponent, when you have Canelo beating Plant, and then if Benavidez can come in and beat Plant better, that doesn't necessarily mean he wins the fight against Canelo, but if he can beat it better, there you have buzz. There you start to have that talk. Oh, he beat Plant. He beat Plant better. He beat him easily. He beat him before the 11th round. He knocked him out in the 9th round or the 7th round or whatever. Or he easily beat him by decision. That's how you start to get those talks. And this has been my point the whole time. Calix, my guy. I'm also a Canelo fanboy, joking. Appreciate my guy, Remy, rolling through. Appreciate the super chat. But this has been my point the whole time. As you build a fight traditionally, the new age boxing fan is trying to deceive you into thinking that you can skip that part of the process. It's not the case. If you do it, the fights are going to end up not as big, and it's not organic, so it's not sustainable. It's simply not sustainable. These guys don't have a track record of. We see it with Zerto. Zerto's gonna fight Gabe Rosado this week after fighting one tough fight against Dimitri Bivol. These guys don't have the track record that if they win the big fight, they can continue on throughout that process. What we talk about with Ryan versus Tank. Tank versus Ryan, I love the fight for many reasons. Many reasons. And it's interesting in particular because we haven't seen either fighter fight this level of competition up to this point, right? So it's a big win for either guy either way, but you need to do more after that. And it's the conversation that the Tank and Ryan fanboys don't want to have. They think that you're moving the goalpost, that, oh, you're trying to take it away from them if they win that fight. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is they win this fight in April. I want to see them again in September or at the latest December in another good fight, another meaningful fight. There's no reason that the Tank versus Ryan winner can't fight the Haney versus Lomachenko winner. There's no reason that the boxing politics should be keeping that away. No reason. They'll brainwash you into thinking so. The networks and this, that. Those fights should be happening. Those fights should be happening. Can't talk facts without being labeled sad. There's a lot of labeling out there. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of labeling out there. Our agenda is simple here. We just want to see the good fights. That's it. We want to see the good fights, no matter who it is. And we want to see more stars in boxing. Like, I want to see legitimate stars that move the meter. Not only boxing, hardcore boxing fans, but casuals alike. They move the meter. You get excited to see these fighters fight. But my pitch to the people, not that I would have a pitch because I'm not really interested in moving their opinion. It's just pushback and my pushback would be, you don't like the Ryder fight in May, you're going to get a bigger fight in September. An even more meaningful fight in September. He's a mandatory 2 top 10 super middleweight wins in 2022. He's earned his shot. He did things that the other fighters, we look for separation. When there's not much separation, when we just have eye tests to go off of, we look for separation. He did that. Danny Jacobs, Zach Parker. He has a peer who was not willing to fight Zach Parker twice. He went out there and did it and stopped him. We look for separation. John Ryder created separation by simply fighting the fights. That's it. As boxing fans, that's like the bare minimum. But doing the bare minimum, he separated himself from his peers for the Canelo fight. He's the mandatory. Any other fighter out there fights the mandatory and then fights the number one, who happens to be number 5, top 5 in the division. Then he fights the number 1 guy in the division north of him 4 months later. That's seen as a legacy year. And that's what we talk about expectations. And these people are being deceptive with their narratives and their talking points out there because they want to have their cake and eat it too. It's what I talk about with Mayweather. I was seen as a Mayweather detractor, and then I was seen as a Mayweather fan, but I was certainly seen as a Mayweather detractor by the Mayweather fanboys. We called them the Flomos back in the old YTBC. Why? The reason why was I expected more of Mayweather than they did. I used to joke about it all the time. Like, you see me as a a Mayweather detractor, but I'm actually a bigger Mayweather fan than you because I show that with my expectations of Mayweather. I understand you put anybody else's name at the top of Mayweather's resume. It's a great resume. But we're talking about Mayweather. We're talking about the most talented fighter in the sport at the time. One of the most talented fighters we've ever seen. So my expectations aren't for him to fight Robert Guerrero. My expectations are not for him to fight Marcos Maidana. My expectations would be for him to fight Paul Williams, Antonio Margarito, Carlos Quintana, run through the division, Josh Clottey, Andre Berto at the time, Miguel Cotto at 147 at the time. These were my expectations. My expectations were that way because I expect him to run through these guys because he's Mayweather. Cotto, Margarito, Clottey, these guys can get away with such resume because they're those guys. They're still great fighters. Cotto, Hall of Famer, they're still great fighters, but Mayweather's exceptional. He's in a different galaxy. So my expectations are higher. But the difference between me as a Mayweather detractor and them as Canelo detractors is I was honest about that. I'm actually a bigger Mayweather fan than you are. My expectations are higher because I think he's greater than my favorite fighter, Miguel Cotto. I think he's greater than Antonio Margarito. I think he's greater, that much greater than Sergio Martinez, that he could jump 2 weight classes right now and beat Sergio Martinez. Sergio Martinez is willing. He said he'd fight you at a 155 catchweight for the middleweight title. Go do it. Go do what Ray Leonard did with Marvin Hagler. Go do it. I want to see that. I want to see you jump these obstacles. I want to see you. I thought Mayweather would beat Sergio Martinez at middleweight at the time. Fight Pacquiao now. Whether you think he's roided up or not, fight him. These were my expectations. They were not those people's expectations. But at least I was honest about it. I'm a Mayweather detractor because I want him to fight tougher fights that he's not fighting. I understand his resume is still great. I understand his resume still may be better than a Cotto, Margarito, etc. But I'm expecting more. I'm demanding more as a boxing fan because I think that highly of him, because I think he's a greater fighter than these other fighters. What the Canelo detractors try to do, what they try to get away with, is expecting higher of him, expecting more from him, without attaching that special label on him. They'll try to tell you that Canelo's just average, just an average fighter. It's not that good. His resume is not that good. Yet when he fights a John Ryder and then fights a Dimitri Bivol, that's a legacy year for a David Benavidez, for a Caleb Plant, for a Charlo, for a Bubu Andre. But for Canelo, it's a duck. It's a duck. And if you want to do that, you at least have to be honest about why you're doing. You have to at least be honest about it and say, I think that highly of him. I think that highly of Canelo, that he could fight the number 4 guy in his weight class in mandatory, finally go back to his home country after 12 years to fight. Hasn't fought in his home country in 12 years, has done this outside of his home country, all of his accomplishments. Go back, do it, be the top 4 guy in the weight class, top 4 or 5. And then 4 months later, fight the top guy in the weight class north of that, who he already lost to. But I mean, the dude, you see these channels, you see these journalists, there's nothing that Canelo can do right. So it doesn't make any sense to try to explain it to them or appease to them. It doesn't make any sense. You just don't do it. I used to try a decade ago. It doesn't make any sense. You're not going to do anything to please them. You're not going to do anything to turn them. And I understand why the content creators do it, because there's monetary value in it. I don't understand the consumers of this stuff. I don't know if you saw Lion Killer, how many people are subscribed to him, but he put out a post on his community page. You can go back to it. It's like 2 weeks. And this is Lion Killer, Lion space Killa. Like 2 weeks ago, he put this post out there and he said, you don't understand why these guys do what they do in the LDBC and the YTBC. You don't understand what they do until you see the money that they're making. And I don't know where he pulled this up. It's a website. You can pull up the monetary value, the value of certain channels, how much they make per year. And this isn't exact, it's just the estimate. And they're showing that Fannin Boxing makes $132,000 per year. And you see the value of his channel is $183,000. You see the value of 79 Sports TV's channel is 320 something thousand, the value of his channel. So you see these guys, some of them making close to $250,000 per year, certainly well into the six figures, spreading these narratives. And you wonder why they keep doing it. It's not hard to figure out. I don't necessarily blame them. I couldn't do it, but I don't necessarily, and I'm not in a position where I have to, but I understand why these dudes are out there playing the games that they're playing, because I see this stuff and I see the super chats coming through when people send me these clips. They send me these clips and I see super chat $20, super chat $40, super chat $50. And you're just rolling through and you see these dudes are making money just sitting there doing the easiest thing. It's not hard to do this. Just sitting behind the screen and spreading the same narrative. You wonder why these dudes do what they do. You wonder why they do 6 to 7 hour lives, 2 hour lives, talking about Bud versus Errol every single day. You see why these dudes put on their knee pads and beg for the Deontay Wilder interviews day after day. You see why they do what they do. And I understand why they do it. They're making money. They're making a lot of money. And it beats the hell. It beats the hell out of working an office job. And it beats the hell out of, going to the plant, putting in an honest day's work. Just sitting behind here for a couple hours a day, watching super chats roll in. Beats the hell out of that. I understand why they do it. I don't agree with it. I wouldn't do it, but I understand it. I don't understand the consumer. I don't understand the dudes in these chat rooms who just keep coming and just keep getting hit over the head with these false narratives that are so easy to figure out. Why they keep sending these super chats. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? So it's not the creator that I'm questioning at this point, is the consumer. I understand why the 78 Sports TVs do this, why the Fannin Boxings do this. I get it. I get it. When I see those numbers, and I don't doubt those numbers at all. When I see these dudes making six figures putting out this content, I understand. I get it. I get why Deontay Wilder is still the champ and why he was poisoned by his own trainer and why Tyson Fury put egg weights in his glove and why still Deontay Wilder didn't try to launch a criminal investigation against that and just kept fighting him. I understand why Deontay Wilder is still undefeated. I understand why Canelo is just a bum fighting other bums. I get it. I get why they spread this stuff. I get why they spread these narratives. It doesn't make sense to even, it makes sense to get on your channel and push back on it because you want people to know better, but it doesn't make sense approaching people who spread these narratives because there's nothing you're going to say. They already know. They already know. They already know Canelo's that dude. They get it. They already know Tank's not the face of boxing. And even if Tank beats Ryan, he's not going to become the face of boxing. They get it. It's not going to stop them from calling Tank the face of boxing. But there are still consumers out there who don't understand. They don't get why we're still attached as boxing fans, hardcore boxing fans who just want to see good fights, why we're still attached to Canelo. I've explained this before. He built an organic fan base. He did it over a decade. He behaved a certain way consistently. And the only person who can detach himself from his fan base is Canelo. The media cannot do it. They think that they can do it. They think that they can pull Canelo away. They think they can pull Canelo's fan base away from him. They think they can do it. They got another thing coming when they watch it in May. And for months, they'll spread this narrative that this is a terrible fight, that John Ryder's a Euro bum, that John Ryder's never accomplished anything, etc., etc., etc. Then they're going to turn on the TV. Their consumers who don't know any better are going to turn on the TV and see 50,000 people sold out, drunk, having a blast, watching Canelo fight John Ryder. And they're not going to get it. They don't understand why Canelo loses to Dimitri Bivol. 4 months later, he does a $23 million live gate in Vegas against Gennady Golovkin. They don't get it. They don't understand. They don't understand how somebody can lose a fight and keep going and not lose his fan base. They don't understand how Canelo loses to Mayweather and becomes the face of boxing. They don't get it. They don't understand. They never will. The creators understand it because they make money. They understand it, but they make money spreading these narratives, so they will continue to do it. The consumers don't get it. They don't get it. They don't understand why Canelo's Canelo, why he's in the position he's in, and why that's not going to go away as long as he's around. Don't get it. But their motives are simple. Their motive is money. Like I said, it's so easy to get on here and spread the same narratives. When you see the money rolling in, and every time you say it, every time you say the same thing, the money keeps rolling in. It's easy to see why they keep saying the same things, even though they're repeatedly wrong. Yeah, I think Ryan's a live dog, even with the weight stuff. I think Ryan, from what I hear, has the right people around him right now. Strength and conditioning, trainer to navigate all this stuff. And I think he's going to do that. I still think he's a live dog. Even with rehydration clauses, catch weight, I still think he's a live dog. Shout out my guy, Iceman. Yep. Lion Killer. And I don't always agree, but that's all channels. I don't always agree, but he's out there putting the content out that he's putting. He's out there on the front lines battling these dudes. And he puts a post like this up. And I fully agree. I've never wanted to say it, but these dudes are making 6 figures to do this stuff, fellas. It beats the hell out of going out 8 to 10 hours a day and working a hard job when you can just stay on here and spread these narratives and watch the money roll in consistently. You wonder why, like I've said it, if you're still getting Deontay Wilder interviews right now, he only does interviews to dudes who accept that they have to put on knee pads and suck them off. And they still do it. Why do they do it? Money. It's simple. Money. It's just money. The motive is easy. Like, it's easy to figure out. It's money. Why are they still pushing the anti-Canelo narratives? It's easy. The dude, Canelo could do anything. Canelo could fight blindfolded, one arm behind his back, and beat Benavidez and Plant and Charlo and Bubu Andrade and Bivol and Beterbiev in the same night. It's still not going to matter. It's still not going to matter. He was looking through the blindfold, though. he was peeking through the blindfold. It would always be something. It's always going to be something. But that's the motive behind that. That's why they can have their cake and eat it too when it comes to Canelo. That's why, when I ask the question, when I say, at least when I was a Mayweather detractor, I was still higher on Mayweather than them. I still thought Mayweather was a greater fighter than everybody else at that time, pound for pound, which is why I had such high expectations for him, which is why I was disappointed when he was fighting the Robert Guerreros and the Marcos Maidanas, etc. That was my disappointment. That's why it was there. It's because I'm higher on Mayweather than his hardcore fans are pretending to be. They can't admit why they detract on Canelo constantly. They can't admit it. They can't admit it why that is. They can't bring themselves to say that they're simply higher on Canelo than every other fighter because they think Canelo's great. They can't do it. They can't bring themselves to do it. It would hurt their clicks too much. Bruce Gas pulling in that money, $500,000 a year. People being lied to. I seen Blue Bud gets 100,000 or 1,000 in super chat on one live. I've seen it. I've seen people send it to me. And you know what? I don't knock their hustle. But we have to admit that we all see that it's a hustle, right? It's a hustle. It's a hustle. These channels, we might as well name them now. The 78 Sports TVs of the world, Fan and Box, they're a hustle. It's a hustle. And they don't believe what they're saying, fellas. They don't believe what they're saying. They're not in it for the same reasons we are. They're not just here, boxing fans and speaking boxing fans. They pushed their narrative and they found, I think, surprising to them that there's a lot of money in pushing these narratives. They realize that there's a big market for it and they're going to continue to do it. Instead of being honest, knowing that if they were honest, they would lose those clicks. Instead of being honest, they got to keep going with it. They keep going with it. It's more money coming in, more money coming in. It's an endless grift. It's an endless grift. It's an evergreen grift. That's the beautiful thing about it for them. It's evergreen. They can get on the same, and it could be a different fighter. 5 years from now, it'll be a different fighter that they love, a different fighter that they hate. It's an evergreen grift. They can continue to go to the well with it. And props to the content creators out there making good money who are being honest. Props to them. And definitely props to the content creators out there who are not making money off of this. Not making much money at all, but just being honest. And they can. I've seen it, man. I've seen dudes that I'm close to sacrifice the money just to be honest. I've seen it. I've seen people close to me. I know what they were making before in super chats and AdSense money. And if they had continue with that, what they would have made, if they would have kept with the similar narrative. But they didn't. They couldn't stay quiet. They couldn't sacrifice the integrity. I've seen it. I've seen it with D-Style. I've seen it. I've seen him in that position. He didn't take the money. He didn't take the money. I've seen other channels do it. It's better to just be honest, man. But at the same time, that other part of me, I get it. I understand, like, if you're not in a great situation, if you don't want to get up and do an honest day's work, it's easier to just continue with the grift. But the only reason I bring it up is because when it comes to Canelo, people wonder why Canelo can do no right with these content creators. They wonder why. That's it. It's no more difficult to figure out than money. It's money. There's a market out there for Canelo hate. There's a market out there for a lot of stuff. Remy brought up labels earlier. There's a label market out there. And the reason the vitriol is so thick with these channels in particular is because they can't compete in the arena of ideas. They realize that they're wrong, but they're going to continue with the grift because of the money rolling in because of it, because they have a consumer base who eats it up. But they realize when they get outside of that echo chamber, they cannot compete. They can't compete in the arena of ideas. They can't. So it's easier for them to just label. It's easier for them to just call somebody David Duke, Hitler, racist, all these narratives, all these labels. It's easier for them to just do that because they can just shut the conversation down that way. But I got news for them. It's getting harder. It's getting difficult to get away with that. It's getting more difficult to get away with that. That play in the playbook, that Hail Mary, not working as much anymore. Now you made $500,000 and $5. Appreciate that. I think I got what I got $9 on this one. 5. Remy hit me up with 4 earlier, so 9. But I mean, just that's what it is. That's what it is. But people wonder why they're so hateful. Why the vitriol? That's why. That's why it is, because they can't compete. They can't. Like a dude like me and one of those dudes, if we got like in a neutral arena and just talk boxing, they would not be able. And I'm not even trying to pat myself on the back. It could be, name anybody, D-Style Boxing, whoever, Lion Killer, whoever it is, Ring IQ, whoever it is, they can't compete outside of their echo chamber. They can't. So they're going to stay in their echo chamber. They're going to continue to push these narratives. And then anybody who challenges in that anybody who tries to break that bubble, anybody who punctures that bubble like a little bit, boy, all of their resources are going to go towards destroying that person. And it's going to be in the easiest manner possible. It's going to be the label game. I'm just going to label that person. I'm going to cancel them. I'm going to dox them. Anything I can do to get rid of them because I can't have a conversation with them. I know I'm not being honest. That's the thing. The channels who really believe this stuff, they'll be stupid and go out there and try to get out their echo chamber. They'll try to have a conversation with somebody like me or whoever and attempt to compete in the arena of ideas, and they can't. All right, but they don't realize it before. The dudes who are out here grifting with the evergreen grift, they know they can't get out. They know they can't. They know they can't get out that bubble. They can't. They built that bubble. All that money's in that bubble. And if they step out, they're going to get eaten alive. They're going to get eaten alive. They can't step out that bubble and have a conversation about Canelo. They can't step out that bubble and have a conversation about Deontay Wilder and poison drinks and egg weights. They can't. I've seen these dudes who are dumb enough to do it have these conversations. They get destroyed. These other dudes who are grifting and they're at least intelligent enough to know that they can't step out the bubble and compete in the arena of ideas, they're going to stay in. They're going to stay in. So you can say whatever you want. And I've explained this. I've explained the Canelo detractor game. I've explained it. I've explained what they do. It's the constant moving of the goalposts. It's when Canelo's at 160 and Caleb Plant and Billy Joe Saunders aren't a direct threat yet, they'll start to build this narrative that, movers, lateral movement, naturally bigger. These guys would give Canelo all kind of problems. Canelo would never move up to 168 because they didn't expect him to move up to 168, become undisputed. He would never try to do that. He would never attempt to do it. And then when he does it, what happens? When he moves up to 168 and signs on the dotted line to fight Billy Joe Saunders, they start to move the goalposts right away. They'll say, Billy Ho Saunders. Billy, Euro bum. He can't win. And then Canelo beats Billy Joe Saunders, and it's just, he beat a Euro bum. Forget that a year prior, they were building up Billy Joe Saunders as the boogeyman to Canelo. And then they'll do the same thing with Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant's white chocolate. Lateral movement. Can punch with that left hand. And then it looks like negotiations aren't going well. Oh, Canelo don't want to deal with the PBC because, Caleb Plant's white chocolate. He's all wrong for Canelo. And then what happens? As soon as he signs on the dotted line, they move the goalposts again. Oh, it's actually a weak undisputed run. Weak. He actually should have fought David Benavidez instead. And now white chocolate's back, right? Since David Benavidez signs to fight him. Oh, white chocolate's back. He's back. He's back in effect. Lateral movement, strong with that lever. You saw what he did to Darrell. And what these fighters don't realize is they think they're developing an organic new fan base. They think they're widening their fan base, but all they're getting is Canelo detractors. These are temporary fans that are going to go away. They're being used in a pawn in this anti-Canelo war. And then once they've been used. They're disposed of. They don't care. They don't care about Charlo. You think these dudes really believe Charlo deserves a shot when he's been dormant for 635 days? You think these dudes really believe that Boo Boo Andre deserves a shot? When he wouldn't fight Zach Parker twice and Janet Beck twice in the same year? You think these guys really believe that Morrell Jr. is the boogeyman? Do you really think that these dudes really believe that Trout, Lara, Golovkin twice all beat Canelo? It's a grift. I'm just telling you where it comes from. It's a grift. And there'll never be anything that he can do to please these dudes. And the least that they could do is at least admit why their expectations are so high of Canelo, but they're going to refuse to do that because it will mess with their clicks. And it's not them that I have the problem with anymore. It's the consumers. Why do you consume this content? It's weird. It's weird. Shout out my guy, Remy, again. I trust an honest man with my life. And Remy, you just got me over $10. I'm gonna get that fan and boxing money. I'm gonna get that 78 Sports TV money. Ice man, yeah, Canelo wanted no part of plant based. That's what I'm saying. And these receipts are all over the place. And the same consumers keep coming back to consume the same content. Like, at what point do you realize you're being lied to? These dudes can't compete in the arena of ideas. They can't. They can't come out and have a real conversation. They can't. They box themselves in. They can't come out and have a real conversation. I'm going to start clowning these dudes because of it. They can't come out and have a real conversation, like an honest conversation. They'll do something like invite you onto their channel. And I've been in that environment before. I've made that mistake and gone to these places. And then dudes just shout you down. And then they stick their chat on you. And then they mute your microphones. They can't compete. They cannot have an honest conversation. They can't. They're just going to push their narratives in their bubbles and then dox, cancel, destroy. Label, label, label. Label, 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 label. They're going to label the hell out of you for even having the audacity of coming at them. They're going to label you. They're going to try to destroy you that way because they cannot have that conversation. They can't because they will get destroyed. They will get destroyed. They will get eaten alive. They do not know boxing. They can't tell you Bam Rodriguez from Josh Franco. They can't tell you Inoue from Ioka. They don't know anything about lower weight class. They don't know anything about anything that's happening south of 135. They don't know anything about what's happening outside of American borders. Nothing. Nothing. They will get found out quickly. Quickly. Immediately, these dudes will get exposed. They will get found out. They can't have these conversations. They can't have honest conversations. They can't have deep boxing talk conversations. They can't do it. Can't do it. They would get destroyed. Absolutely pummeled is what would happen. And I've had people tell me they're in it for reasons other than boxing, and I trust people who tell me that. But for me, I don't care. Like, I know they can't have boxing conversations. I know they don't have that boxing knowledge, and I know when I see one of the red flags when you have Spence versus Crawford, when you have 5, 6, 7 lives about Spence versus Crawford and disparaging Crawford. I had Coach Malachi tell us that. Coach Malachi is like, I went to Omaha, Nebraska, and Bud's telling me, like, Bud Crawford, I'm in his gym. He's telling me, why are my own people destroying me? It's my own people destroying me. Destroying me. Tearing me down. It's my own people doing it. You know, when you have a Canelo versus Ryder signed, and then every resource is dedicated towards destroying John Ryder and what he's accomplished in order to destroy Canelo by extension. But I mean, good luck. Good luck outside your echo chamber. Good luck outside your bubble, because once again, if Canelo beats a top 5 super middleweight and then fights, to me, win or lose, fights a guy who beat him, who happens to be the number 1 guy in the weight class above him, who happens to be 4 or 5 pound for pound on my pound for pound list right now, who happens to be, according to CompuBox, the most versatile fighter in the sport, Dmitry Bivol. Good luck trying to tear that down with real people who know real boxing, who talk real boxing. Canelo has the same problem with some Mexicans, is a problem that goes deep. And I've seen that too, because I had those conversations with Mexican boxing fans early on. I remember going to Canelo versus Mayweather and having those conversations with some Mexican boxing fans that I knew from Twitter who hated Canelo, hated him. And early on, it was that Canelo, you know, he's a pretty boy. That's part of it. And then Canelo thinks he can be Chavez, and he's not Chavez, and etc. There was a lot of stuff. And it was his attachment to Oscar, right? Because I remember that from the 90s. Mexican nationalists versus Mexican Americans, and then Chavez versus De La Hoya, and De La Hoya is seen as a fraud by some Mexican fans because he's a pretty boy, and we don't like that he has an American flag with the Mexican flag. We don't like any of that. We don't like that he speaks English. We don't like that a lot of women like him. You know, we think his heart pumps Kool-Aid. But eventually, you got to give respect, and eventually that happens, right? I was there after Canelo's fight with Golovkin in September. And I'm in there, and I'm not just name dropping, but I'm watching Cotto, and we're speaking to Cotto, and every 20 seconds, the conversation is paused because Canelo has to take a picture or sign an autograph for a hardcore Mexican fan who was there to see Canelo fight. And this is Miguel Cotto. And I remember at the time when Cotto's active and he's fighting Margarito and he's fighting Canelo, the Mexican fans hated him. But over time, what happens is that respect develops. As long as these fighters are being honest to themselves, as long as fight fans are being honest to themselves, you have respect for people. And it develops over time. And Cotto got that respect from the Mexican fan base over time. There still may be holdouts, but I find a lot of people who are disparaging online, they get in these situations in real life where they actually go to a fight and they see Miguel Cotto and they're going to go and get an autograph. They're going to go and have a conversation with him. They're going to go and take a picture with him. That's just what it is. That's what it is. But I'm telling you, these dudes, Nello got problems with HCP. I hope not. But these dudes can't get out of their echo chamber. I'm just telling you. They can't. They will never come out and have a conversation because they will get destroyed. You know, good for them for having all the subscribers. Good for them for making all that money. But the real ones know what's what. And the real ones know what's up. And the real ones know we'll leave some things unsaid, JC. But the real ones know up from down, they know what's what. And they know that they can't have conversations. They box themselves in. They can't have conversations with real people about boxing. And these dudes are not going to come out and have a real conversation about Canelo. They're not. They're not. And they're trying to bully the people out there like me who are simply defending boxing. And it may look like I'm defending Canelo or Canelo apologist because I'm a boxing apologist. I simply want to see fighters do great things and go for greatness and be active. But they want to try to bully us into giving up what we believe in. Simply because they know they can't compete in the arena. There's a reason they're so hateful and so spiteful, and there's so much vitriol there. There's a reason for it. It's not that they're actually that way. They have to be that way to keep the grift going. Have to be. Because they can't come out and have real conversations. They can't. On that note, I'll see y'all tomorrow. God bless. Peace.